This is Agri Country, brought to you in part by Alice Chalmers and your nearby Alice Chalmers dealer. And here's your host for Agri Country, Ed Johnson.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Agri Country. We start today's show by taking you to our country's largest horse show. It's known as the All-America Quarter Horse Congress, held just a few weeks ago at the Ohio State Fairgrounds. From there, we take you to the Ohio River, where we'll load on Agri Country today. Barges with soybeans. In fact, take you right out on the towboat. Welcome to Agri Country. Alice Chalmers and old EJ. We go back a long way, late 40s as a 4-H and FFA member. Alice Chalmers then was a household name, just like it is today. Here into the 80s now, four-wheel drive tractors, 220, all the way up to 305 horsepower. See them at your Alice Chalmers dealer. Welcome to America's largest horse show. It's the 83rd edition of the All-America Quarter Horse Congress and hosted by the Ohio Quarter Horse Association. And we've got Ron Robinson, who is their executive secretary. How many members in the Ohio Association, Ron?
Ed, there are 3,500 members in the Ohio Association. Virtually every one of them shows at the Congress here.
And how many full-time staff people?
We have 6 full-time staff people, Ed, plus the board of directors of 42, which volunteer their time throughout the year, but especially during Congress.
Also with us on the show, a longtime friend, John Steinberger, who is chairman, it says on his badge, but you say that may be a misnomer.
No, I'm actually a manager of the horse show, Ed.
Now, we've got a lot of beautiful horses right behind us, John. What might be an average value of the horses that would compete here at this year's Congress?
Well, they'll vary quite a bit, but an estimate of the value of these horses that we're looking at and show at the Congress, probably $15,000 to $20,000 average value of these horses.
And how many might show at this year's Congress?
We have a little over 8,200 entries and around 4,700 horses on the grounds.
That's a lot of horses, a lot of people. How many people would you expect totally, Ron?
Well, about 60,000 people come through the gates for the Congress, Ed. These people come from throughout the United States and all the provinces of Canada. We also this year have a contingency of Brazilians that are coming up here, and this is the first time they've been up here in a couple years, though.
Now, I have heard that as big as this show is, that the Texans, especially people of Houston, would like to move the Quarter Horse Congress to the Southwest. I hope that never happens.
Well, you know, Texans, they always want everything to be the largest. Certainly they've tried, they've indicated some interest, but everybody's happy in Columbus. Columbus works great with the Quarter Horse Association, and we're going to stay right here.
So it goes back. Isn't this where it all originated, right here?
Columbus is where it started 17 years ago, and we expect to have our 27th in the same place, right here at the Ohio State Fairgrounds.
And I understand as far as conventions, there's nothing bigger annually in the capital.
That's right, Ed. This convention brings about $5 million into the economy of the city of Columbus. This is by far and away the largest convention.
With that, we want to take you inside now, where there's an open reining competition is underway, and we're going to visit inside with John. John, the gate's about to open, and I want you to describe now what's going to happen in this reining event.
All right, the horse is entering the gate now. This is National Reining Horse Association Pattern 8. The horse is supposed to walk into the ring under total control. You see he's very calm, and he walks up to the center of the arena.
John, are the judges looking at rider and horse, or are we just judging in this open reining the horse?
Well, we're judging the horse, but of course the better the rider, the more qualified run the horse is going to get. Now you'll see the horse stop for just a second, and now he's going to do 3 spins to the left. There's 1, 2, there's the 3rd spin. Now he stops, settles the horse. Now he's going to do 3 spins to the right.
We saw a horse earlier make too many spins. What happens then?
That is a disqualification. He's off pattern. This horse now is settled. Now he's going to start with a circle to the right. You'll notice the horse's right front leg moves out first. This is called the right lead. So he's doing a fairly large circle. Now you see him slow up. You see the transition just slightly slower as he does his second circle. Now watch very closely as he comes to the center. You'll see his front leg switch. Now he's on the left lead.
Is this natural for quarter horses, John?
Well, naturally, a horse will lead with the correct lead when he's going in a circle, but to do this, you have to teach them. Now, he did his fast circle. Now he's slowed down just a slight bit, and he'll change leads back to the right lead. There it is now.
Only the best are here. How long would it take to train a horse for this reining pattern?
Most of these horses will have been in training at least 2 to 3 years to get to this place. Now there's the beautiful sliding stop. You hear the crowd like it. He did a roll back to the left. Once again, he's under total control. You'll see the horse is up on the bit, and the rider's cueing the horse at all times. Now he's turning him loose. There's that sliding stop and a roll back to the right.
Rider only with one hand, John.
Right. In Western, we ride with one hand because the cowboys have to have the rope in the other hand if they're roping. There he goes again. There's your sliding stop. A nice one. Now he's going to ask the horse to back. And that's a very unnatural thing for a horse, Ed, to back. You hear the crowd showing their appreciation.
And now, this being an open show, so all ages, I presume.
Right. This is open reining. Now you see the horse approaching the judge, and this is the equipment judge. The man will dismount, and he'll drop the bridle clear from the horse's head. And the equipment judge will look at the bit and make sure that there's nothing illegal about the rigging, and then he's excused from the ring. Ed, there are 5 judges judging this class. Each one of them turns in a score, maximum of 80 points. The judges' scores will then be tabulated, eliminating the highest score and the lowest score, and the middle 3 will be totaled in.
You people can certainly boast about some of the purse money. Maybe as much as $120,000 in some of the futurities. John, what about the class that we're observing now?
I don't know the exact purse, but I would estimate we're probably looking at maybe $30,000, $40,000 prize money going in this class. So it's not only the prestige and honor of winning a big class, but also the dollars and cents involved.
John, an excellent job. As John Steinberger describes what's happening here at the All-America Quarter Horse Congress in open reining. Also, we talked earlier outside with Ron Robinson, the Executive Secretary of the Ohio Quarter Horse Association, the people who host this tremendous national event. And we invite you to stay tuned now as we're about to take you down and load barges on the Ohio River right after these commercial messages. The answer to a more efficient harvest can be found at your Allis-Chalmers dealer in a Gleaner. Gleaner now has the longest line of combines available to you, conventional and rotary. And they come in corn and small grain heads to fit every operation. See the Gleaner at your Allis-Chalmers dealer. To the Ohio River we go, about 12 miles upstream from Cincinnati. We're at Silver Grove. And this is where the landmark grain terminal is located. We're right in the heart of our TV12 viewing area, and awfully happy about that. Our first guest, John Higgins, the general manager. The rather new facility, John.
Yes, our elevator opened in December of 1979.
How many acres did you share with me?
We have 74 acres here.
So plenty of room for expansion.
This is correct.
When we rolled in, I was surprised. I thought we would see a great deal of storage capacity. Not so.
No, this is a relatively small elevator compared to some of our other terminals. We have 315,000 bushel storage. We're built primarily for speed.
So the idea is for the farmer to bring the grain in, put it there, and quickly move it out as you're doing right now.
That's correct.
Now, how much of a leg do you have, John, to get from the terminal out here to over the river?
The belt is approximately 400 feet long.
So all the grain's moved by the conveyor belt?
By conveyor, that's correct.
How much capacity does that have?
We can load at the rate of about 35,000 bushel an hour.
Wow, that's a lot of grain, and we've got the grain table right behind us, rather mobile.
Right. We can load, this turns at 180 degree radius. We can load a barge just about any position here at the cell.
When do you begin loading barges in the spring?
We load in, well, we don't really load in the spring. We start loading in about July and August when wheat starts moving. And then again in the fall when corn and soybean harvest starts.
And how long will you be able to load this fall?
Well, we'll be loading right through probably March. The upper Mississippi freezes in January, February, March period. The exporters then have to come to the Ohio to buy their grain. So the Ohio very seldom freezes, and we're able to load right through March.
So you pretty much don't worry about old man winter as long as the river keeps flowing.
That's correct.
John, let's talk about these barges a bit. We've got some downstream that are not loaded yet. We've got some upstream. There's quite a difference in how they sit on the water.
That's correct. We load barges according to draft. Most barge companies want us to load approximately 9 feet. The empty barges will set approximately 12 to 13 feet out of the water.
Give us an idea of the dimensions of these barges.
Most of them run about 200 feet long and about 50 feet wide.
Now, you're loading soybeans right now. How many bushel of beans would we be talking about?
About 50,000 bushel.
And that would also apply to corn?
That's correct. And wheat. We just handle the 3 commodities here, wheat, corn, and soybeans.
Do you fellows have a goal as to the number of barges that you'd like to load at a day's time?
Well, we have loaded as many as 4 a day, but in a normal 8-hour shift, we can load 2.
So you load them, John, and then stack them over here, so to speak, until they move on downriver?
That's correct. We load them and we put them in what we call a fleet. We have part of the riverbank leased to Silver Grove Fleeting. After the barge is loaded, they'll take the barge, put it in the fleet, and wait for a line boat to come downriver and pick it up and take it on to New Orleans.
John, when we talk about handling grain for river purposes, any concern that you have to watch in regards to quality?
Our main concern would be the moisture factor on the grain. Sometimes barges sit in the fleet for as much as 2 weeks before a line boat will pick them up. So we have to try to load to USDA standards, which is 15.5% moisture on corn, 13% moisture on soybeans, and 13.5% on wheat.
And the federal inspector is always around, isn't he?
That's correct. They're here today.
Now, talk about a little bit, John, the trucks coming in. What areas would you serve with this river terminal?
Okay, we serve approximately a 60-mile radius, which encompasses southwestern part of Ohio, from mid-Kentucky north, and a little bit of grain out of Indiana. We service probably, I would say, 85% of our grain comes from Ohio.
And what might be the price advantage? Because I see a number of farmers coming direct into here.
Well, the inland markets are serviced primarily by railroads. The river is the cheapest way of moving grain, so we're able to afford the farmer a little better price, as much as 15 cents compared to some of the inland markets.
You see many changes as you look down the road for those of you fellows who use this river, John? Do you see quicker transportation, bigger barges?
No, I think the supply of barges is pretty well permanent, and I don't think the barge lines are in the market right now to build any newer ones or bigger ones. I think it's going to stay pretty much the same.
Now, what did you do? Because we saw out here that there's a place where you measure how high the river can get. And you said last spring when we had all that rain, we got to the 54-foot mark?
That's correct.
Now, that's a lot of water.
That's right.
How in the world, when you're into that situation, does that mean you just simply have to close down loading of barges? And I'm wondering what you do with these empty barges and so forth.
Well, last spring was the highest the river's been since I've been here, and we were able to load right through the high water, which is an advantage over the other grain terminals in Cincinnati. We were loading when the other ones were out of business. And
so the swiftness of the water wouldn't make any difference to you?
No, it creates some problems in controlling the barge, but we were able to load right through it.
John, we were following you up to the loading tower. How high are we above the river right now?
About 100 feet.
And what is the normal water flow of the Ohio River?
Right now we're at normal pool, which is about 26 feet.
Who owns the barges?
They're owned by various barge lines. Today we're loading a barge owned by Dreveau-Meckling.
Now, once you group those barges together, how often would you be shipping on down to the Mississippi?
Well, we hold barges until a line boat comes along to pick them up. A line boat would be a boat belonging to the barge company who owns the barge.
And we want to go on down now and talk with the fellow that operates the tugboat to get an idea of what it's like to move thousands of bushels of grain out here on the Ohio River. Shortest turning radius and 100 horsepower tractors in front-wheel drive. That's what you'll find in the Allers-Chalmers 8010, the 8030, the 8050, and the 8070. And now they come with the biggest cab in the industry, a door on each side. See them at your Allers-Chalmers dealer. Welcome back to Agri Country. What a delight to be right out on the tugboat with Ron McCarty. Ron, the fellows have got this barge filled and we're moving right up to it. What are the things that you're concerned about right now as this happens live?
Well, basically we just go up to the barge, face up, put our face wires on. Just more or less take the barge from the dock into our fleet, which is right behind the dock here itself.
So kind of a switching practice is what you're doing here.
Yeah, it's just more or less routine for us. Just taking the load from the dock and putting an empty barge in so they can load that.
Now, what about when John was referring earlier on the show, when the river got to 54 feet, you got a lot of current, must be a great deal more difficult at that point.
Oh yeah, right now we have what we call pool water, which is normal stage this time of the year, and you know, with high water, naturally it's more dangerous. The current, you get more current, driftwood, this type of thing.
Now you're coming close. How fast are we going? Not very fast.
Oh, we're just creeping up to it now so we don't bump the barge, hurt the boat or the barge, and because we're responsible for any damage. So we just take our time. It's heavy. It's got about probably 1,600 ton of soybeans. So you can imagine we got to take our time to something like that.
You bet you do. How big a boat we talking about when we talk about these towboats?
Well, what we're using here is what we call a tugboat or a switch boat. We're about 700 horsepower. I think she's 60 by 18 as far as footage. And
now, for you viewers, he's coming in awfully tight. What will you hook up with, Ron?
well, we use what we call it's just a wire hooked to a winch. We put one on the port side and the starboard and tighten them down with the winches so it locks us into the barge so we can maneuver the barge.
Ron shared with us, for you viewers, that he worked in Mississippi from St. Paul to St. Louis for a number of years as a captain. How would it compare to work in Mississippi, Ron, versus working the Ohio River?
Well, there's not a lot of difference as far as the line boat pilot's concerned. If if you run one river, you basically run all of them. As far as it's just learning a little different river, and I would say it's a little bit more difficult running the Mississippi than it is the Ohio.
But I understand that you decided that you want to put your own business together, be with the family a bit more. Now, do you contract with the Landmark people and the other people here on the river as well?
Well, we're not actually under contract to them. We're just offering a service, and we're close, so we try to get naturally use the tug business or fleeting service that's closer to them for financial reasons, of course.
So, but who pays you for your service?
The barge line people.
Oh, the barge line.
The people that own the barges actually pay me, yes.
Do you get reimbursed by the barge or by the hour? Just how?
We basically do everything by per move or fleet day. In other words, if a barge stays in our fleet under our care for 10 days, we charge for that many days per day. And other than that, we charge by the move, from dock to fleet, fleet to dock, etc.
All right. What are you set to do now?
Well, we're waiting for my deckhand, Chuck, which I better turn the radio on so he can hear me, to turn the barge loose from the dock. It's tied off with ropes, which he's doing that now. And as soon as he does that, he'll let me know that he's what we call all gone, which he did just then. And then we just back the barge out real slow and put it to fleet.
And again, we're talking about 50,000 bushels. Again, how much total weight might we be talking about with the barge and the grain, Ron?
Well, I'm not real sure about the barge, to be honest with you. I know that I would say that normal in a barge this size, it's a 200 by 35 foot barge. I'd say around 1,600 tons of cargo. And the barge itself, I'm not real sure of.
Ron, you've brought that barge now away from the grain terminal, and now you're going to try to put it over into the fleet, correct?
Yes, we just tie it off in the fleet, and it'll stay there until a line boat comes down the river, which they'll call us, and we'll put this barge, our barges, on this boat, and he'll take them on to its destination, which I assume is New Orleans or somewhere in that area.
We say right here it says extra long barge. What does that tell us?
That just tells us the barge is 200 foot long. It's a box barge. We have box barges and what we call a rake barge. They're 195 foot long.
All right. Now you're working the controls. What are you concerned about right now as we do this, actually, while it's happening?
Well, basically, I'm just listening to my deckhand. We have two-way radio system.
5 wide, 30 below.
And he's telling me that how far below where we want to go and how wide we are, so we don't bump the barge or do any damage.
Oh, he said like 5'1", 30 below.
Well, he said we're 5 wide, and I think he said 30 below.
All right.
That means we're 5 foot to come in to get alongside the barge, and 30 foot below where he wants to go. And that would be the upper end of the barge, where he wants to tie his rope.
And now you'll just swing it over
Yeah, and just as easy as possible.
next to the other barge.
Yeah, because the people own the barges,
Wide, 25 below.
you know, they don't want any damage to the barges. And that's, so we just go easy.
And I noticed that you take it very easy.
Well, you've got to, because they're hard to stop, and then once you get a momentum going through the water, then
Foot wide, 20 below.
it's just hard to stop them.
As you get a couple of radar units, you ever use them much?
Not really in this business. The line boats use them a lot. You know, if it gets foggy and we get out in the middle of the river working a line boat and it gets foggy on us, well, we use them to get back to the bank.
Ron McCarty, you do a fine, fine job. We're going to let him go ahead and do his work now as he moves this huge barge, and then we're going to go down and pick up another barge and bring it back up to the grain terminal of Landmark here on the river so that they can continue to load here about 12 miles north of Cincinnati. Our guest, John Higgins, manager of the Landmark facility here at Silver Grove, and of course we've just been visiting with Ron McCarty.
This Week in Agriculture is courtesy of the Ohio Farmers Union, the legislative voice of the family farmer.
This Week in Agriculture today, the National FFA Convention concludes in Kansas City. National Association of Farm Broadcasters Convention continues through tomorrow in the same city. The Ohio National Poultry Expo is underway on the Ohio State Fairgrounds and will continue through tomorrow. Thanksgiving celebration at the Ohio Village, that's right next to the Ohio State Fairgrounds, gets underway next Friday, runs through the 20th. While we're talking about Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving on the Farm celebration takes place. Carriage Hill Farm begins next Friday and continues through the 20th over near Dayton. November 27th, as we look down the road through December the 1st, the 17th National Young Farmer, Young Farm Wife Institute. That'll take place at Richmond, Virginia. A number of young couples will be going from Ohio. 65th Annual Ohio Farm Bureau Annual Get-Together, November 28th through the 30th at the Convention Center in downtown Columbus. Next week on Agri-Country, we're going to share with you facts about the upcoming Ohio beef marketing referendum, then take you to the Brinkman Turkey Farm just south of Findlay. It's a beautiful show. In fact, it's our Thanksgiving show. And then we conclude next week by visiting with Ellen Ricketts of near Thornville, as she is a very active part of Ohio's Women for Agriculture. Join us next week for Agri-Country.
Our sincere thanks to the farm families and agribusiness people who participated in this week's program. Agri-Country is brought to you in part by Alice Chalmers and your nearby Alice Chalmers dealer. At Johnson's Western Wear, provided by Rod's Western Palace, Columbus, Ohio. Agri-Country salutes agribusiness and the family farm, those who make us the best-fed nation in the world.